All right, guys, we're back, and we're back with one that I'm really excited about. I've actually had this in for a couple of weeks now. I apologize for not putting up a video last week. I've had a lot going on, and there's a couple things I started to post about. I'm still a little conflicted about whether I want to post about them or not. I'm a little bit torn. One of those things is an amp that I got from Amazon that was dead on arrival. It arrived not working. That's the first time that's happened to me. That was not this amp, by the way. Totally different brand and everything. Something that you haven't seen on my channel. And the other thing is kind of a bad experience with an online audio store. And I'm just a little bit torn about whether or not I want to post about that. But had a lot going on lately. Sorry about not putting up a video last week. I wanted to do this one last week, but I wanted to get my lithium squared away, and I finally got that squared away. So I've got double the lithium now of what I used to have. I've got 160 amp hours and a 100 amp power supply. Let's get into this one. So it's been right at about a year. I think it's been 11 or 12 months since I did the Hifonics Zeus ZXX-2400.1D. I really liked that amp. I was a little bit biased, but I still like that amp. It puts out decent power. It did not do its ratings. That's always a bummer, but it was a little bit higher quality amp than your typical cheap amps. The fit and finish on it was a little bit better. The inputs, and I thought it had that cool fuse in the end of it. And I think that was the first amp. There's only been a few, but I think that was the first amp that I had on the channel that did more than times 10 on the fusing. And I know you could say that that's a good thing or a bad thing. Well, maybe it needs a bigger fuse then. So no, not really. You can safely do a little more than times 10 of the fusing, especially if that amp is efficient. So I don't know. To me, that still has always been one of the better budget amps. And so ever since then, I've always wanted to do the ZXX-2400 or the ZXX-3200. And so for a whole year now, I've thought about buying one of those other amps to test. And so a few weeks ago, I was scrolling through Amazon looking, and I come across this one, and I thought, oh yeah, another Zeus. I've been wanting to do a Zeus, but it's not a ZG, it's a ZXX. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is a step up. I think this is a better quality amp, supposed to be a better quality amp than the ZG series, but it's a 2400.1. So it fit in that size that I was already interested in doing. And I thought, yeah, that would be better because then it's not just the same old ZG, but a little bit bigger. So we're testing a bigger Zeus and a different series of Zeus. So this box is pretty big, especially compared to the ZG-1200, but not too much going on the outside. Here's some stuff here. Designed and engineered in the USA. This is a Hifonics amp. Made in China. Here's some ratings. 600 by 1 at 4 ohms, 1200 by 1 at 2 ohms, 2400 by 1. It's a 1-channel amp at 1 ohm. So right here on the box, they're claiming that it does 2400 watts. That doesn't say RMS, it doesn't say max. So who knows? And I have not unboxed this amp yet. So I haven't looked at a manual. I haven't hooked it up to the dyno. So we get a very small owner's manual. There's a sticker right there, Hifonics sticker. the wiring thing. 2 ohms, 4 ohms, series, parallel, dual voice coil, all that good stuff. Let's set that out of the way. All right, so it's a box in a box. We don't mind that because we want it to be packaged up good. Let's see here. There she is. There she is. You know, this amp does have a little different look to it. Wow, I'll tell you, it is pretty wide, or you know, deep maybe. This will be more of the width, but man, this thing is pretty deep that way. All right, so it looks very similar as the ZGs, but the end caps and stuff are slightly different. This is a bigger amp for sure. So this is cool. The Hifonics here is raised. Pretty sure that that's gonna illuminate. Zeus there. ZXX-2400.1D, 2400 watts. There's the end. Okay, so this looks like 4-gauge terminals. Kind of thought that these might be zeros, but it looks like 4-gauge, and over here, sorry, if I'm not showing that right. Looks like 4-gauge over here for the power and ground, and then these look like 8s or 10s. Two 60 amp fuses. The maxi fuses, that 1200 had one 60 amp fuse. So that's 120 amps of fusing. The 1200 ZG had one 60 amp fuse, and it did like 698 or something like that. Just under 700 watts. So is this thing gonna do 1200 or 1400? I don't know. We will find that out here in a minute. Okay, on this end here, power and protect, no clip light. There's the remote. There is the bass EQ. That's gonna be the bass boost. 0 to 9 dB subsonic, 10 hertz to 40 hertz, low pass 40 hertz to 300 hertz, and then the gain listed there is level. Input and output. I like seeing output RCAs. That's always nice. Designed and engineered in the USA. Okay, let's see what the back says. So it's got the Power of the Gods thing on the back. All right, I'm excited about hooking this up to see what it does. So this is a Class D mono block. We're gonna test it at 4 ohms, 2 ohms, and 1 ohm. That's what what it said on the box. And so let's hook this thing up and see what we get. Let's see if this one does more than 10 times its fusing. Stay tuned for that. All right, guys, here we go. We got her all wired up. A couple things first. Here's the owner's manual. Really, really simple. Here's all the amps in this lineup. 2-channel, 4-channel, some 1-channels, another 4, a couple of 1s, and a 5-channel. We've got this 2400.1D. There are no ratings in this manual, and no ratings online because this amp is no longer listed on their website. So they must have discontinued the ZXX amps. But there's no ratings in here. The manual is very simple. It's got some, you know, how to hook it up. This is interesting right here, the fusing. So we got the 200, the maxi fuses. 60 by 2. And then the gauge wire, it shows 4 gauge all the way down right below that one. And then for these last two, the 3201 and the 5005, 2 gauge. And that'll be the power and ground wires. But no ratings here, just basically how to hook it up. Also, you do get a bass knob with this amp. If I remember right, the that ZG amp did not have a bass knob, which it was really disappointing because by today's standards, you gotta have a bass knob. I mean, it's very simple. No lights at all. It's the kind that's got the little clicks. Telephone jack style. There's the cord. Anyhow, get that out of the way. But this is going to be the 4-ohm run. This will be a 40 hertz test tone because this is a Class D monoblock. So this amp is made for subwoofers. Don't plan on getting something like this and hooking it up to your door speakers. It's not going to sound right. I've got all the filters opened up. I've got the gain on about 1/3. That's typically how I do it. I used to set the gain by the DD1 and all that stuff. And to be honest, it usually ended up being at about 1/3. And that gives me just a little bit extra on the bass knob to make sure that I get to clipping. So that's how I have the control set up. Bass boost is off. Both filters are open completely up, and the gain is on about 1/3. All right, let's get to this 4-ohm run. So the only rating is that one on the box, 4 ohms, 600 watts. We are going to start out at the 14.8 volts, and we're going to capture the current. Let's roll the track. Will it do 600? Let's find out. You know what? Let's put this in dyno mode. Sorry about this, guys. All right. Let's roll the track. I'm off my game, y'all. I haven't done one in a couple of weeks. I didn't turn it on. Hey, speaking of turning it on, I have not yet turned this amp on, so I'm gonna do that right now on camera. Like I said, I have received a dead amp recently, but it was not a Hifonics. Here we go, 1, 2, 3. All right, and look at that. Holy cow, that looks so cool. Let me turn the light off. Let's see, nothing on the ends. Yeah, just the power light. But that is really cool. The way that that glows, that is neat. Okay. All right, now that the amp is on, 4 ohms, will it do 600 watts? Uh-oh, 394. The voltage never did drop below 14.7. It would flash if it dropped below 14.7. And the current draw was 41.5. All right, guys, there you go. It was rated 600. It did 394, so didn't do its rated power. Those are probably max ratings on the box, but this is RMS right here. All right, let's hook it up at 2 ohms and see what it does at 2. All right, here's the 2-ohm run, rated 1200. What's it gonna do? $669. The voltage dropped to 14.6. And the current draw was 76 amps. All right, rated 1200, did 669. So I think she is gonna end up putting up a decent number for us. It's already done almost what the ZG-1200 did at 1 ohm. So 669 at 2 ohms. Are we gonna see 1200, 1400, 1000? I don't know. Let's do 1 ohm and find out. All right, guys, we're back for the 1 ohm test. Rated 2400 watts. It's missing its 4 ohm and 2-ohm numbers by quite a bit. We know now that on the box, those are going to be max power ratings, but I don't think we're surprised by that. I think all of these Hifonics amps have max ratings. But One-ohm rated 2400, what's it gonna do? Let's find out. $10.10. The voltage dropped to 14.4. That's perfect. And the current draw was 133. 10.10. Wow. So it missed by quite a bit. And it didn't do the 1200. It didn't do the 1400. It didn't do times 10, where that ZG did more than times 10. So I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I'm disappointed. I thought that we would see, I was gonna be, I was expecting 12 or 1400 watts out of this amp. Now, can you do a lot with 1,000 watts? You sure can. Let's talk about this too. This is interesting. 1,000 watts right here. So I might have told this story in the other video. Forgive me if I did. I'll tell it again with maybe a little more detail. Back in 92 or 93, when I first got into car audio, I was, 16, 17 years old in high school. And I went around for a while saying I wanted a Zeus 1000 and 2 Godfather 18s. Now, the funny thing about that is I had a single cab Ford Ranger. I don't know where I was supposed to put this stuff. I wound up with some 8s and some 10s. I'll tell some other stories later about some of those systems and maybe what my first system was and how I progressed to a little bit better stuff. But long story short, I kept saying I wanted a Zeus 1000 and 2 Godfather 18s. I had never laid eyes on any of that. I don't think they even made a Zeus 1000. I think their stuff was rated different back then. And the best I could tell, they didn't have an amp that was called a Zeus 1000 at all. But I heard somebody say that and that was good equipment, and I just went with it, like a lot of young people would do. But so I had a Zeus on my mind for all these years, even though I had never owned one. That's kind of why I wanted to get that Zeus 1200. And it's kind of why I wanted to get this one, because that 1200 did not do 1,000 watts. So I thought it would be cool to finally, after all these years, end up with a Zeus 1000. So I don't know. It's only been about 30 years. But I guess I finally got me a Zeus 1000. Guys, what do you say? I mean, we got to put it on those 2 SCAR 12s, right? 1,000 watts on those 2 SCAR 12s should do pretty good. Let's hook it up to those 12s and see how it does. Also, y'all chime in if you don't mind. Let me know, do you care to see the certified and the uncertified? Do you like that I hook up the DD1 as well? Or do you not care about that and you prefer me to just go back to this? I don't really know. It's funny, ever since I started doing this, nobody's ever commented whether they like it or they don't like it or anything. So I can only assume that people don't really care too much. But, I'm one of those guys, that dynamic number is what I like, because that's more realistic about what people are going to be doing in their vehicles. All right, guys, let's hook this thing up to those two SCAR 12s. All right, guys, a couple of things. Number one, I think I just said that I like the dynamic number the best. That is incorrect. Y'all know I get mixed up and say stuff wrong all the time. I don't mind capturing the dynamic number in a run like this, but what I meant to say is uncertified. So basically up to clipping on a dyno run, that's my favorite number to monitor. Also, in the last 2 weeks, the channel has gotten monetized. So about a week and a half ago, I reached 1,000 subscribers finally. That is awesome. And I applied for that side of things and got approved. And so now the channel is monetized. If you're wondering why there's now commercials running on the channel, that's why. I'm trying to make a few bucks to pay for some of these amps. This is a prime example right here. I bought this thing brand new, and I'll sell it and I'll lose a little bit of money on it. I usually sell them on Marketplace, and I always lose money, and I've just been chalking it up as a hobby. And it does get quite expensive sometimes, but maybe YouTube can now help me recoup some of that money on when I sell these things on Marketplace. That 30 or 40 bucks that I typically lose per amp, maybe I can help, you know, pay for some of that now with the channel being monetized. All right, enough talking. Let's get to these 12s. Let's see what she'll do on the 12s. Not too bad. Not too bad. There's that dynamic number. Guys, here's another one. I say it all the time. Here's another one that does fall in that sweet spot that would run great in a vehicle with stock electrical and about the right amount of power to push a couple of entry-level 12s or 10s, or I'm gonna be honest with you, you could put a couple of entry-level 15s on an amp like this, but this is another one that falls right in that sweet spot. For me, that sweet spot is between, you know, 800 and 1200. And you get above that and you start needing to do, you know, alternators, batteries, big three. A big three is always a great idea. Even with a, you know, 1,000 watt amp, a big three is a good idea. Okay. All right, guys. Hey, I got something really cool on the way. I've bought another brand new amp. It should show up any day. Hopefully I can put that video out a week from now. But it's a really cool amp, and make sure you subscribe because you don't want to miss that and all the other cool stuff coming to the channel. So guys, there's the Zeus Hifonics ZXX-2400.1D. All right, thanks for watching.